E D F E D F E D F E D F. Oh wait, what the hell is an Earth Defense Force? Where's my barrel roll?
Earth Defense Force was a 1991 arcade horizontal scrolling shooter released by Jellicoe, which would later be ported to the Super Nintendo as Super Earth Defense Force. What's so super about Super Earth Defense Force? Well, it's on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, so of course that makes it super. Now, the arcade original allowed 2 players to tackle the bad guys, while Super EDF is strictly a single-player endeavor, so it's a bit of a trade-off. Obviously, this has nothing to do with the Earth Defense Force series that some people might be more familiar with these days. You know, the one with the space bugs. That's a more successful EDF, the classic Game Room approved EDF. This, on the other hand, is an obscure shooter from Jellicoe that was just plopped onto the Switch Online service, and also the arcade version is also available via Hamster's Arcade Archives lineup. I could have played that one, but that requires me to buy it, and I'm not about to do that anytime soon. Not when I have this. So if you're familiar with the concept of the scrolling spaceship shooting game, Earth Defense Force is pretty much the same deal. You fly a little ship, you blow things up, try not to get blown up yourself, and all that jazz. Pretty standard horizontal scrolling shmup practice. There's a couple unique aspects to Super EDF, one of which is the way you upgrade weapons. Before starting a new stage, you can pick from one of 8 available weapons, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, and each covering familiar tropes, your laser beams, your spreaders, and of course, your homers. As you kill enemies and score more points, the meter above will fill up, and once filled, your weapon will level up and its effectiveness will improve. Similar to how you would level up a character by gaining experience in an RPG. Your ship also comes equipped with a shield system, which means you could take a couple hits before you eventually perish. As a trade-off, you only have a single life, but you do have 3 continue credits that lets you restart the current stage, and then once they're gone for good. It's okay, it's fine. It's nice to have something different besides the one-hit kill respawn back to basic levels that most shmups would impose. Now, of course, for a bit more of a challenge, you have a hard difficulty setting you could choose, and you could set the number of shield units you start with up to the default 3. Beyond that, Super Earth Defense Force is essentially your average shmup fare. It follows the tropes of giving you long levels with a lot of enemies thrown your way, and lots of bullets to avoid, while occasionally running into bosses that take a million hits to die, and often have multiple forms to take down before they are eventually defeated. It is territory that has been traveled by many others, and if you've played many shooters of the horizontal scrolling variety, then Super EDF is pretty old hat, and that's about all there is to it. Controls fairly well, there's 6 levels of play, not very long, not all that difficult, if you have the right weapons on hand of course. The game does suffer from occasional slowdown when there's a shit ton of bullets on screen. That's not a bug however, that is a feature. Or so I am told. Graphics are kinda so-so for a shooter type game on the Super Nintendo. The overall design of the spacecraft and the enemies are kinda stock derivative stuff, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing you haven't seen before in countless other shmups. There are some neat visuals on display here on occasion, from simple things like the sky changing colors due to the passage of time, or the slow approach of a massive spacecraft in the background of the 4th level. What Super EDF lacks in originality, it makes up for in the occasional spark of style. On the flip side, however, the audio of Super Earth Defense Force is somewhat on the mediocre side. Sound effects are practically non-existent, as half your weapons don't even have any sound effects, while the few sounds that are in the game are either too quiet to be noticed or too bland to matter. And as far as the music goes, yeah, that's also a bit of a wash. Too bland and forgettable even by the standards of generically generic chiptunes, let alone within the realm of space shooters with tremendous scores to their credit. Overall, Super Earth Defense Force is pretty average shooter fare on the Super Nintendo. A fun game for sure with a couple neat ideas, but nothing that make it stand out in the skies of titans. Still, it has its moments, and if you just want to play a fun little shooter, then Super EDF will satisfy that itch just fine. Game's fairly inexpensive if you know where to look, and if you have the Switch Online gimmick, it's on the SNES library, so have at it. The arcade version is also available via the Hamster Arcade Archives series, but that's its own thing, and if you want to go for that, go for it. It's okay. That's all I got.